Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I've got another movie review. This one for a movie that, at least as of time of recording, is still in theaters. It might be leaving soon though, I don't know. In any case, I wanted to review 5 Feet Apart. I just went and saw this yesterday, and it was super good. I really enjoyed it. Me, I don't know that I can fully do a review without some degree of spoilers, so heads up and warning on that. But I will at least try to make it less spoilery and or just have a spoiler warning when I want to really talk about the spoilery stuff for this one. So, as I've basically already said, first thought, really loved this. Such a fun movie. And fun is probably not the right word because it's about people suffering with cystic fibrosis, which is not a fun disease. But for what it was, I thought it did a great job of portraying it. Obviously, having not experienced CF myself, I can't say if it's perfectly accurate or anything, but watching what they did to try and help you see what it would be like to live with CF, it seemed very accurate. Even in times when they'd just be overcome with laughter because of a funny joke kind of a thing, they'd often end up in coughing fits and things, which seems accurate when you've got a bunch of mucus clogging your lungs. So I do think they tried to portray it very accurately, and from what I know of it, it seemed pretty accurate. I was mildly confused with some of it because the people with CF obviously were interacting a little bit with other people with CF. That's kind of a large part of the premise of this movie. But I wasn't always clear why it was okay for them to do certain things or if they were technically breaking the rules and it just wasn't outright stated. Like, obviously, they've got their 6 feet apart rule where they're not supposed to be closer than that with other people with CF in order to not pass on bacteria and things through the air because that's about how far, like, a cough, for example, is supposed to be able to travel. So they did seem to maintain things like that fairly well, but they didn't always have their masks on talking to each other, and so I wasn't sure if the masks were just an extra preventative measure when they're going through the hospital and there's all the extra bacteria that they're supposed to be avoiding, or if technically they were supposed to be wearing that around other people with CF as well, and the characters were just ignoring that because they're like, these are my friends and it's hard to talk through this mask and they can't understand me well, so I'm just going to take it off, kind of a thing. So I wasn't clear on that. But I did overall like what they did with it, and that they had the little thing in their nose most of the time, which was helping get them oxygen and things, I imagine. Because they'd have their little baggie that looked like oxygen tanks and whatnot. The one was a full-on oxygen tank, like I've seen before, the metal canister that wheels around. So I'm pretty sure that's what that was, and that was cool. And I don't know if sometimes they had the characters take that out because you don't always need it with CF, or if that was part of oh, this is supposed to be a sexy moment in the story, and we're just gonna take that out so it's more believable because we don't think that people like it as much. But frankly, when they did have those in, I wasn't really noticing it, so I think it was a silly concern if that's why in some of the scenes they did take those out. But yeah, obviously you wouldn't always be able to perfectly work around it. Like in one scene, she's putting on makeup and things, and so it'd probably be really hard with that thing in your nose and wrapped around your ears to do makeup. And so if you took it out for that, I could totally understand that kind of thing. So there are obviously situations where they wouldn't be perfectly using it, but I wasn't always clear on what was going on with some of that. If it was just a director decision that in this scene take it out because we want you to look like quote unquote normal people or something, or if it was just yeah, they don't always technically need it because sometimes your lungs are functioning better than others. It wasn't explained well enough, I felt like. But there was that. The actors themselves in this movie I thought were fabulous. The last time I saw Cole Sprouse was in Sweet Life of Zach and Cody / Sweet Life on Deck, and oh my gosh, has he grown up since then. He was very attractive in his role, and I thought he was a fabulous actor, completely different from the child star that I remembered him as. So that was great. Haley Lou Richardson was very convincing in her portrayal of her character, both in like the general living with CF and then the particular storyline that they gave her character and why she ended up being the way she was about her CF. I thought she was very well done and very well acted. I do feel like Moises Arias' character, who's their like mutual CF friend, who's also gay, because we have to have gay people in stories or something. I don't know. Or just so it wasn't like, oh, he's not competition in the romance. I don't know why they portrayed it that way. But they were very clear that he was gay because it was mentioned multiple times, and that's fine too. I don't know, having not really any gay friends in my life because I live in a very conservative place that doesn't necessarily have a lot of that actively exposed to people. I don't know if it just comes up that much in conversation in general or not, but they were definitely very clear that that's what he was. And with his character, because of things like that, I felt like they were trying to be a little too blunt with some of his character, and they could have toned him down a little bit. Not that, I'm saying that it's bad for him to have been a gay character, just that once it was stated, I didn't feel like it needed to be stated over and over again. And sometimes his character felt a little too blunt with the other characters, like they wanted him to kind of foil, and then they went a little too hard on the foiling. So there was that I didn't particularly prefer, but that's okay. So now we'll probably jump into a little bit more spoilery stuff, because I do want to talk about the climax of this movie, just because it was very different from what I expected it to be, and overall I'm glad about it, but it was also kind of weird. So, again, spoilers. The general climax starts with the death of Moises Arias' character. So that kind of triggers everything. And he died, and I was like, oh, they're going a different route. The leads are not going to die in this movie. They're going to have this big response to their, mutual best friend dying and realize, wait, maybe we should tone off our relationship, kind of a thing. And I thought that was just going to be the climax. But then from there, their response to it is that they leave the hospital. Haley Lu Richards' character really wants to go see some lights in town, and so they are like, you know what, I'm done being just a victim of CF. I want to live my life, so we're gonna go off and do this. And then they're out, and it's like wintertime, so they're walking in the snow for a little bit. They walk by a frozen lake. They start playing on Frozen Lake, and you're like, oh my gosh, someone's going to fall in the water and die. What a stupid way to do this. You can't just let them mutually accept that maybe their relationship isn't the best. You're just going to kill one of them. So typical. But they didn't actually do that. Yes, eventually Haley Lu Richardson's character does fall in the ice, but Cole Sprouse rescues her, and then he even does mouth-to-mouth with her to try and save her. He calls 911. They get her back to the hospital. They get both of them back to the hospital because, he's a CF person too, so him just trying to get her out of the water and then doing CPR is also really exhausting and wearing on him. On top of them having their near-death experience, part of why she'd ended up playing on the ice was because they were doing their little kind of date thing, and at the same time, at the hospital, they find out there's been a car accident of a female who would be like the perfect donor for her so that she can get new lungs. And they start texting her like, where the heck are you? Why did you leave? We have these new lungs for you. Come back. And she's like, no, screw it all. I'm going to have my relationship. And then, since they can't find Cole Sprouse either, they end up texting him, and they're like, hey, we've got these new lungs for her. Where are you guys? Why aren't you coming back? And he's like, we're going back. And that's when she ends up falling in the ice, and all that part happens. And then, yeah, so it was just so much going on in this climax. Just Moises Arias' death could have triggered some character development and would have been fine. Just the near-death experience of falling in the ice could have triggered character development and moved them on, especially since he did mouth-to-mouth on her, and he's got this vicious bacteria that's really bad for CFers, and it's like, I can't put you at risk like that again. Just that much would have been fine as a climax. Just the lungs themselves would have been a fine climax, because then it's like I have to make this decision if it's worth me trying to survive longer when I know you've got this bacteria that means you can never get a lung transplant and then you're going to die sooner than me. All of this would have worked as just a single solitary climax. Instead, they all stuffed it into one. I'm not real sure why they felt like they needed that much climax, and ultimately it did still work out fairly well. I just felt like at the same time it was way too much climax. Yeah. So I did want to talk about that. But yeah, that's kind of my big issue with that. I do think that it did allow them all to have character growth, or at least our two leads, who are obviously the ones that you're trying to develop the stories of. So, I mean, Cole Sprouse had started as kind of the bad boy who doesn't really follow his regimen, doesn't really care about surviving CF, falls in love, and realizes that life's important, and that he does want to take care of himself and take care of her, and ultimately he does let go of her, which is another spoiler, but we're already in the spoiler section, so whatever. But yeah, I did appreciate that he grew as a character enough to be able to make that decision of, hey, I almost gave you my bad bacteria once, let's not risk it again because I love you too much and I don't want to lose you, and that was beautiful. And also with Haley Lou Richardson's character, she had a lot of character growth because she started out as really anal. I have to survive the CF, I have to treat this CFs perfectly so that I can live, kind of a thing. And then after Moises Arias' character dies, that's really her big flip when she's like, I've been living for my CF, but I know that I can live, not the other way around, I'm not just a survivor, I should be living a life. And I thought that was a really cool character growth, and it was basically putting both of them in the same place eventually, which I thought was cool. That's a nice way to do it. Where it's like they start at completely opposite ends of the spectrum. They both have events that bring them to basically the same place and the same understanding of their disease and where they're at with it. And I thought that was very cool. You start with a risk taker and a girl who takes no risks, and they both kind of balance out to the point where they're in that middle ground of, yes, risks can be good, but we don't want to take too many risks. So I really liked their character growth and all that. I think that's probably the majority of what I have to say, other than that I really want to research CF better now and understand why. One of the things that they talked about, for example, was even though she got new lungs, or other people with CF get new lungs, they generally only have like a 5-year span on those lungs. And so I'm curious to look into why lung transplants don't fix the problem. I know it's like a genetic issue, but if there's someone else's lungs, they wouldn't have those genes in them. So I'm very confused by how that would work, and I want to learn more about CF just in general. I did really enjoy this movie. I highly recommend it, and I'm probably going to buy it when it comes out on video. So yeah, that's my review of 5 Feet Apart. If you happen to have watched this movie, feel free to comment down below your thoughts on it, and if you think that I have a good opinion on it, or you agree with my opinion on it, or if you thought it was like a horrible movie, if you happen to have CF and saw this movie, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But yeah, that's about all I got at the moment. So yeah, this is the Umlaut Herper signing out.